I really love these books, and they just don't get talked about enough. I really wish they got more love. Welcome back to the channel, Book Dragons. I am so glad you're here with me. We are going to be talking today about books that I think do not get enough love. So I've got a list of 16 books here that I really think you should check out. And maybe you've read some of them and that's awesome. And if you haven't, this gives you an opportunity to check them out. Before we get to the list, please make sure that if you enjoy the video, give it a like, subscribe to my channel if you enjoy my content on the regular, and join my Discord. I'd love to see you around the world of Chaz on a more regular basis. And so that is a good place to do it. Alright, so now that that's out of the way, let's get to this list. The first book on this list is McKinnon Noventumus, A Sorcerer's Onus by Conjury Bound. I know it's a long title. The author is John Sloat. Now I'm going to put the cover up here. As you can tell, this is not a great cover. This is one of those books that I bought on a whim on Amazon. It was 99 cents, and I read the blurb and I read some reviews of it, and it actually sounded pretty good, and I'm like, what's the deal with this cover? So I went ahead and I bought the book, and I actually really liked it. I mean, it's not a top tier 5-star read, but it's easily a 4-star read. And it's a classic sword and sorcery feel. There's some really good humor, lots of great wit to it, and so I definitely think it deserves more love. But I realize why it probably doesn't get a lot of love, and that's because of these covers. So I don't know if there's a way to reach out to the author and say, hey, have you thought about doing a new cover? Because the books really deserve to be noticed more. The next one on this list is The Deathgate Cycle by Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman. Lots of people know and love the Dragonlance Chronicles. Lots of people know and love the other subset of D&D novels known as the Forgotten Realms. So those are always mainstays of the role-playing fiction genre. Not many people know about the Deathgate Cycle, or if they do, they haven't read it yet, is what a lot of people say. And this is one of those series that I really think needs to be read by more people. It's such an amazing series, lots of great world building, great character development. It doesn't feel like it was written as many years ago as it was. It feels like it has definitely aged well over the years. And I have not read the Dragonlance Chronicles yet, but I have read this series, and it's absolutely phenomenal. I think Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman's writing and story building is just superb. So I highly recommend that you check this out. The next series on this list is the Millennium Trilogy by Stieg Larsson. Now, I have done a couple of videos on this series. I did a video on why you should read the Millennium Trilogy. I did a character deep dive video for Lisbeth Salander, which is the main character from this series. And I'll leave links to those in the description below if you're interested in checking those out. But this is a highly underrated thriller series. It just blew me away. Every single book in the trilogy. I have not read beyond the trilogy because they were written by a different author. I'd heard they weren't as good because the original author died. But the trilogy is complete and it is fantastic, guys. It is so good. So this is definitely a series that does not get as much love as it should. Okay. The Dark Thorn by Sean Speakman. When I mention Sean Speakman, most people either don't know who I'm talking about, or they've heard of him, but they don't know much about him. They haven't read any of his books. He is most well known as the web designer for Terry Brooks and Naomi Novik, but he is an author as well, and he has written many books which are really very good. The Dark Thorn was his first book, and it is a phenomenal read. It's an urban fantasy featuring a character who lives between two different worlds. One is the world of our modern day, and one is the world of Anun, which is the Fey realm. And it's just an absolutely magnificent story. There's some short stories set in that world too that he wrote. He's working on the second book in the series right now, and he's written other books as well, like the Tempered Steel of Antiquity Grey and the King Killing Queen, which has just made it big on Kickstarter. So I can't recommend Sean Speakman enough, and the Dark Thorn is just really a lot of fun. So I definitely don't think that this book gets enough love. The next one on this list is the Paternus trilogy by Dirk Ashton. A lot of people probably have heard of Dirk Ashton. They're probably aware of who he is. He's pretty active on social media, and the Paternus trilogy is an urban fantasy that is somewhat similar to American Gods by Neil Gaiman, but it's more expansive than American Gods is because it includes gods from all different types of pantheons, and it's just a really, really fun story. The writing perspective is a little bit different. It's written in the second person present, so it does take a little bit to get used to, but if you hang in there, you're going to really, really enjoy this story. Now, I've only read the first book, but I do plan on finishing the other two books in the series, and I'm friends with Dirk as well. He's an awesome guy. It is a self-published series, although I think he's working with Wraithmark Creative now, and so I'm really happy that he got picked up with them because his books really deserve to have a light shined on them more. The next series I want to talk about is the Craft Sequence by Max Gladstone. Now, Max Gladstone is typically known for being the co-author of This Is How We End the Time War. So that's a fairly popular book on BookTube. I still don't hear it talked about a whole lot, but it is still talked about on BookTube. I never hear people talking about the Craft Sequence. I think I've heard Patrick Leo mention it once, and I think it is very underrated. Again, I have only read the first book in this series. There are 6 books in the series, along with a forthcoming trilogy of books that is supposed to finish out the saga. That's the way I understand it. I could be wrong, but I'm very much looking forward to continuing this series. It is an urban fantasy series, and the magic and world building is just really super unique. So I highly recommend that you check these books out. The next book on this list is The Aeronaut's Windlass by Jim Butcher. This is the first book in his Cinder Spires series. The second book is coming out, I think, either the end of this year or the beginning of next year. And it's a steampunk fantasy series with epic airship battles and cat warriors that can talk. And it's just so much fun, guys. If you like Jim Butcher's writing in the Dresden Files, his writing is equally good in this series. The Aeronaut's Windlass is a very underrated book, and it doesn't get enough love, and I'm here to give it some love. The next book on the list is The Ballad of Black Tom by Victor LaValle. This is a retelling of the Horror at Red Hook by H.P. Lovecraft, and it follows a black street musician named Tom as he gets wrapped up in working for the Elder Gods. It's just awe-inspiring to watch his spiral into evil and madness. It's so good, guys. I can't recommend this enough. I read it, have I read it 3 times? I think I've read it 3 times, and I want to read it again. It's just that good. So this definitely does not get enough love. The next book on this list is Meddling Kids by Edgar Quintero. If you are a fan of Scooby-Doo, if you grew up with Scooby-Doo as a kid and you loved the cartoons and you always wished that they made some Scooby-Doo mysteries just for adults, here you go, guys. This is a great book. This book follows a group of kids who are eerily similar to the adventures in our favorite Scooby-Doo mystery stories, and they are now adults, and something begins to happen that is regarding a case that they solved when they were kids, and now it turns out there might be more to that case, and it's got a lot of Lovecraftian horror and stuff like that. I mean, you can kind of see the tentacles on the cover here and everything like that. It's such a good book, guys. I absolutely love it. It doesn't get any love on BookTube, except from me, and that was when I first read the book. It was like almost 3 years ago, maybe. It was one of my first reviews on BookTube. So yeah, guys, this is really, really good. I highly recommend it. And the next book on this series is actually 2 books. It's a duology. And that would be Strange the Dreamer and Muse of Nightmares. You guys have heard me talk about these books before, so I won't spend too much time on it, but I don't think it gets as much love as it could. It does get some love on BookTube. I know there's a lot of people on BookTube that love this series. I would like to see it get more love. It's a fantastic story. The characters are just brilliantly written, I think. It's unique. The magic system is unique, and it follows a daydreamer named Laszlo Strange who happens into this mysterious world that he's always wanted to know more about, and eventually comes to find out information about himself that he didn't know he needed. And it's just amazing to watch the story develop, and the characters that he comes to know and interact with, and the mysteries behind everything that's gone on that caused this world to pretty much forget this mysterious city that he ends up in. Just a great story, guys. I highly recommend it. And the next one on this list is The Ninth Reign by Jen Williams. This does get some love on BookTube. Not a whole lot, not as much as I think it should. It follows a group of people that have been brought together by destiny to solve the mysteries of a race known as the Juralaya, and it's full of really unique and interesting magic, statues that come to life, and a very unique animal companion in the form of giant bats. It's just so unique and interesting, and I really loved every minute of reading this book. I had not finished the series yet. It is on my list of series to finish, but I highly recommend this series to you guys. So the next books on this list are Nightmare, which I don't have a physical copy of yet, so I'm going to put it right up here, and then Shade, which I do have a physical copy of. And these books are both by a fantastic self-published writer, Chad Nicholas. So Shade is a psychological thriller with a murder mystery as the backdrop. And then Nightmare is a psychological horror, and it's just, they are both brilliantly written, super engaging, super fast-paced. They're short books as well, so you can easily read them in a week or less. And I can't recommend this guy enough. He's got a magnificent writing style. The covers are just, I mean, you can see the cover here, and you saw the cover for Nightmare. The covers just blow me away. I just absolutely love them. You can see the dog tags on the back of this one. So definitely a series that you should pick up. It doesn't get enough love on BookTube. And then the next series I want to talk about is the Winter Night Trilogy by Catherine Arden. This is a completed trilogy. The first book is The Bear and the Nightingale. A lot of people are pretty familiar with that one. The second book is The Girl in the Tower, and the last book is The Winter of the Witch. And it is just a phenomenal series, guys. It's steeped in Russian folklore and mysticism, and it is set in the frozen tundras of pre-Christian Rus, which eventually became Russia. And it's such a great story, guys. The main character is Vasilisa Petrovna, and she is a girl of the wilds, born into a home where her mother is extremely religious, extremely devout to the Orthodox Christian faith that is slowly making its way into that part of the world. And she, on the other hand, is just this wild, free spirit in touch with nature and the magics that are associated with nature. And as she gets more and more in touch with the mystical aspects of her world, she becomes more and more alienated from the people in the small village that she lives in, and the story just progresses and grows, and you see so many things happen in Vasilisa's life, and it is just such a wonderful story. I highly recommend this series, and it does get talked about a little bit on BookTube, but not as much as I would like to see it get talked about. So there you go. It needs more love. Go give it some love. The next book on my list is The Hellbound Heart by Clive Barker. And I would say Clive Barker in general does not get a lot of publicity on BookTube. Most people are familiar with Clive Barker's movies, specifically things like the Hellraiser movies, but not a lot of people have actually read his books, and his books are very, very well written. Now, I've only read two. I read The Hellbound Heart, which the movie franchise is based on in one respect or another, and then I've read The Thief of Always. So Clive Barker in general doesn't get enough love, but I'm specifically going to focus on The Hellbound Heart because it's a super quick read. I read it in like 3 hours, maybe 4 hours, one day. It's that short, but it just has you by the edge of your seat the whole time. If you like really gripping horror stories, you're going to love The Hellbound Heart. And so I don't think it gets enough love, so I recommend that you go give it some. The Rook and Rose trilogy is the next one. The first two books in the series are The Mask of Mirrors and The Liar's Knot. It's written by M.A. Carrick, which is a co-author team comprised of Alex, I can't remember their last name, but then the other one is Marie Brennan, who authored the Memoirs of Lady Trent series. So you may be familiar with her. And they co-authored this series together. The final book is coming out this month. I don't remember exactly what day. I'm really impressed with this series, guys. If you like stories with masked vigilantes and stuff like V for Vendetta, you're going to love this series, guys. It is so, so good. It takes place in a kind of Victorian-style setting, and there is a vigilante running around known as the Rook. Later on in the story, there's another vigilante that comes into play that they call the Rose, hence the name of the series. And there's a lot of unique and interesting magic and lots of good political intrigue and lots of good action. I just had a blast reading this series so far, and I can't wait to read the final book. So I highly recommend you check it out. It does get talked about some on BookTube, but not nearly enough. And the final series on this list is... oh boy, it's a heavy one. The Books of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin. I've read the first 4 books in this series so far, guys, and it is absolutely fantastic. Ursula K. Le Guin is a fairly well-known author, but she doesn't get talked about a whole lot on BookTube, surprisingly, but she's extremely prolific. She's written a lot of sci-fi novels. This is her fantasy magnum opus right here, and it's comprised of 6 books and some additional short stories and things like that. So really, really good, guys. I highly recommend the Earthsea books. They need more love on BookTube. Okay? And that is the list. What did you think of my list of books that don't get enough love? Let me know if you plan to check some of these out. I'd love to talk with you about it in the comments below. Also, let me know what are some of yours that you really love that you hardly hear anyone talk about. I'm sure that my list that I've given today is by no means exhaustive, so I would love to hear yours. Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, make sure you read more books. I will talk to you soon.